Good morning, guys. Back on the water. Andrew with A-Team Adventures, and we're here at a lake. I fished this lake once a couple years back, and it was pouring rain when I started. Not this morning, the other, years back. And I remember driving down the lake, and I made the run from one end to the other. And I mean, it was just pelting my face. It actually hurt, but it was a fun day on the water. The rain stopped eventually, and we're back here on this lake a couple years later, and it looks like a pretty decent mixture. We've got grass on this end, and then a lot of rock and kind of rocky humps and islands. So not quite sure if it'll turn into a grass video or a rock, offshore video, but we're gonna start experimenting. I pulled a bunch of rods out, kind of for two different styles of fishing, and we'll see. Let the fish tell us what they want. All right, guys, we hooked into our first fish. Nice fish on the Gaucho frog. Didn't get it too good. We missed one on this already. We connected but then popped right off. Now check this out. Check that out. Do you see what's down his throat? Another fish. Look at that. It's amazing, and you see how fat the belly is, just full with that fish, and yet he wanted another one. That's amazing. Well, we're gonna let this one go and get after another one. We've got a couple loons here, and I figured I'd show you. See if I can do this without breaking it. There we are, look at them. We got 4 of them right there. I'm pretty sure they're following me, thinking I know what I'm doing. Little do they know. Little do they know. All right, guys, we're out here catching a few rays, and not that many bass, and not that big. We caught that one good one, and then we lost a couple on the frog. We've caught a bunch of small ones, and just looking to upsize somewhere. I'm not quite sure. I left the weeds. There were a bunch of people kind of crowding us in the weeds, so I left the weeds and have searched for other things, and found a lot of good rock and small fish on them, but I haven't found the big fish yet. So we're going to keep hunting and see what we can find. Well, it seems we found the nursery. We've got a few of these little smallmouth right in the same exact spot. Again, if they were big fish, we'd be thrilled about it. Since they're small fish, it's a little more frustrating, but they are some kind of active. Something, and I maybe should have demonstrated it, but sometimes when a fish has the bait way down his throat, you always want to preserve them, and sometimes when it's way down their throat, the best thing to do is take your pliers and go in through the gills, being very, very careful, but just behind, where there's an opening by their gills, you can thread your pliers in there and grab the bait and turn it, and then it'll just come out nice and easy. As long as you're real gentle with their gills, they'll be fine, and you can let them go. But sometimes that's better than trying to stuff your pliers down there and kind of hacking at them with the pliers. But yeah, they're small fish, but they just, they can grab it and run. So there must be a bunch of them there. Yeah, there's another one. Just small little babies. Again, fun to catch, but not what we're after, all the same. There must be a whole wad of them. Okay, and here's a largemouth. It's small, but a largemouth. We've been catching most of the smallmouth, so there's obviously both species for whatever reason right there. There's an island hump right here. You can kind of, maybe, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a little, jug or something marking it. But I could see it in my electronics, and came over here, and on the back side of the island there seems to be a whole bunch of little ones. So we'll keep hunting and try to find a bigger one. All right. Okay, we've hooked into a little better fish. That's a better fish. So I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I've got this theory that I've got a theory that darker colored worms catch bigger fish. It's played out for me pretty consistently over the years, and so I've been using very clear natural worms trying to get bites, and this time I swapped to a solid black worm, and this fish is on, and this is a good one. And again, I don't know for sure if that has anything to do with it. Maybe I would have caught him with a clear worm. I don't know. Strong. Wow. All right, that's a beautiful fish. So I ended up just cutting the hook. It was stuck just a little bit down the throat, and just a teeny bit of the barb was catching. That's a beautiful fish. So I just cut the hook off, and a little bit will just come right out, and just a little bit here. I'm going to weigh this one, since it is a good one. I don't lose it in the water here. Okay. Okay, 4.54. I should probably go turn your direction. 4.54. Okay. And we are going to let this beautiful fish go. That's fantastic. We hooked into another one. We just broke off on one, and I think it was a pretty good one. But here we go. This is interesting, right? Funny how things work. We caught a real good one on that island, and what I found in a whole bunch of little ones around the back of the island, what I found, I was working my way up, and there's a whole bunch of rock and a second sunken island, a deeper sunken, but a second sunken island, and that's we've caught. Sorry, I was on the phone, but we've caught a few decent fish off this other sunken island, and I've made my way around it, and the first one we caught off of it, yeah, see, that's a decent fish, not a giant, but a decent little fish, and what we found when I caught the first one, there were a whole bunch with it, and some decent ones, so I kept throwing back, and we've been picking them off. It's not really big enough to weigh, but I'm trying to have an idea of what we've caught today. Just kind of keep a track. I sometimes like to do that. So let's see what we got. Yeah, 2 pounds, 2.16. Put this one back. See if we can catch another one. I broke off on one with my black worm, so I just picked up, instead of retying right now because I think there's more here, I just picked up the other rod I had rigged. So, but yeah, there's a second hump right here. Kind of exciting. All right, guys, we just hooked into another good one. So we kind of moving back up. We went around this little sunken island. We're coming back, looping back another direction, which again, we've talked about this before, but going another direction, going the opposite direction sometimes is hugely important to catching another fish, and sometimes the biggest fish. I don't know that this is the biggest, but it's another one, and it's a decent one. So that's what we're doing. We'll try to get this one in the boat and not lose it for you, and get her back in the water. All right, let's see here. Oh yeah, that's a beauty. Yep, skinny. It must have all spawned out, but big mouth, small body, long, small body. All right, guys, we've hooked into one more. We're making another loop, and I just swapped to, I upsized the worm, and we didn't really upsize the fish, but we did get another one. This one, ooh, wow, a lot of slippery. This one is white. I mean, look at that white belly. But fun to get it, and another shaky head. This is the larger worm on a larger Shakey head, 3/8 ounce. It's a Strike King head, you know, big Strike King bullworm, and again, obviously no trouble eating it, so we're going to keep after it. Okay guys, we've moved, but we found another hump to somewhat hopefully resemble the last one, and we've got another decent fish on the line. It looks like, I don't know if you can see it in the background, but this storm is moving in fast, so we might be kind of close to the end of our fishing today, as much as I'd like to keep this going, because we've found a pattern that's been working for us consistently, and I'd really like to keep it going. But I also don't need to get struck by lightning, and you know, so we might be getting out of here pretty soon. I just checked the weather, and while it wasn't supposed to rain today, it has changed, and it is going to be a good thunder shower for a couple hours, so that kind of will wind up our day, I think. But we'll see if we can get this one in the boat, and maybe another one or two, but that's probably it. What a beautiful fish. Oh my goodness. Yep. And this fish is out here recovering. You can see it's healing up. It's pretty beat up, but it is healing up. This big girl had been spawning not that long ago, and she's out here eating, recovering on a hump in the middle of a bay. I would guess that she would have spawned somewhere way back there, and she's making her way out. So we have found a pattern. I just wish we could play it out a little longer, but this is pretty fun anyway. Pretty fun. Let's see, I think we can replace a smaller fish with this one. Okay, 3.39. Let her go. All right, that's a beautiful fish. All right, guys. Let's see if we can catch one more. Okay, we got one more, guys. I don't know if it's a good one or not, but we got one more. Wants to jump. Not a real good one, but it's a fish. Ooh. It thinks it's a big one. It's not, but it thinks it is. Ooh, it put up a fight like a big one. Alrighty. Tell you what, this pattern is working. I am annoyed with this storm blowing in, but such is life. But it is family movie night, so it'll be nice to be home plenty early and be with the kids and everything, so that'll be fun. Okay guys, back in the garage in the boat. Quick recap of what happened today. So we got out just in the nick of time. Those thunder showers came in and it downpoured. We just barely, there's still a little water in the boat, but we missed the majority of it, but it was coming down. So we pretty much nailed the timing, I'd say. So started off, I love fishing grass. If I can get away with it, that's what I'm going to do. And I probably made a little bit of a mistake there, but you know, we'll talk about that. But started off it was morning, and so I was hoping to get a topwater bite. So we started off with a frog. We were in the grass, and I got a bite almost immediately on the gavacho frog, and lost that fish. I got another bite not too long after, and we caught that one. It had the fish stuffed way down the throat. That was a pretty decent fish. And then I missed another one, hooked up with another one and got it halfway to the boat and lost it. I did, so, you know, probably two takeaways. They weren't really biting the top water all that well. for whatever reason. There were some fish there, but you know, they just were not biting all that well. And then I probably had my hooks a little too, I normally bend them out and up a little more, and this was one that I had bent them up and out a little bit, but not a lot. This will probably get stuck in the weeds a little bit more, so we'll see how we do. But I did bend them up and out a little bit. I didn't get any more bites. I said, you know, enough's enough. I covered quite a bit of water, and I tried in the weeds, you know, swimming a swim jig and a chatterbait. I tried a square bill a little bit out of the thicker weeds, just in about the right depth, but nothing there. So I probably, that's, you know, a mistake looking back at it. I probably spent a little too long in the weeds trying to make it work. I think getting those couple bites on the frog early on, you know, not made me, but I did it, but caused me to kind of stay there hoping to make it happen. It didn't, and then it kind of honestly was a blessing in disguise. There were a few boats crowding me in the weeds, and I said, you know, I'm going to give them some space, but it didn't seem to be happening quite as much there, and I guess later in the day we figured out where they were, so that it all makes sense, but it didn't seem to be happening as much as I would have liked. But I probably stuck with it a little too long. I mean, that's part of exploring, but I probably stuck with it a little too long. Could we have caught a couple more fish in there? Sure, probably, but it didn't seem to be, you know, the real hot spot. Then we moved out and we went to a major main lake point with a lot of rock on it, and we cranked and cranked and cranked. Didn't get a single bite cranking, and we spent some time cranking. You didn't really see it because it was uneventful. It wasn't very fruitful, but we spent a lot of time cranking. And then I picked up a worm and caught a few. I'm trying to think what it was, if it was the Ned head or I want to say it was the, you know, the Shakey head. Something like that. I think I started with a supernatural, you know, looking worm, like a, you know, green or green glitter or something like that. Zoom, you know, trick worm, and caught a few, but they were teeny. I mean, teeny. And then caught a couple more on the Ned head. I don't think I even showed it. They were so small. I mean, you know, this big little fish. I mean, just, you know, even Mike Iaconelli wouldn't say that it was a giant. It was so teeny. But we caught a few on the Ned head, caught a few on the Shakey head, and but nothing of any size. So I just, you know, I was like, man, that's disappointing. And so just kind of kept working around. And then I had seen in my graphs a few rock humps coming out of the spawning bay. And they were just out in the middle of kind of nowhere, out in the middle of the bay, and just rock humps that would come up. And so started fishing those, and I think started with a Ned head and caught a few fish, small again, and then, you know, with the more, you know, natural colored worm, caught a few more, nothing of any real size. You saw a few of those, and we kind of got into a little spot of them where I might have pulled 4 of them off that spot, but still pretty well babies, you know. And then I did swap to the black worm, and then things started to come together for us. I caught a real nice one on the Zoom, the black worm, and I remember Gerald, you know, where I told you earlier, I've got this theory that, you know, typically on average you'll catch a bigger fish with a dark colored worm than you will a natural colored worm. You'll tend to get more bites with a natural colored worm, but a bigger fish with a real dark worm. And it was Gerald Swindell. I had watched a video of his a long time ago, so I'm not trying to steal this idea. He had mentioned it and said, you know, I consistently I catch more bigger fish with a black worm. I got my kids coming in, they've got their chickens, but I consistently catch more bigger fish with a black worm. So, you know, he had said, you know, it's like a hidden secret. I have a Zoom trick worm, you know, and just that is my main worm that I fish, a black one. And I thought, that's so odd. I just, you know, you know, nothing in my mind would say, geez, okay, black worm. And this was crystal clear water today too. I mean, clear water. You could see right to the bottom. And I, you know, it is just not where my mind, I typically like very natural colored baits. And so it's just not, hey Peanut, I'll be done here in a little bit, okay? So it's just not where my mind would go, but I thought, well, good enough. I mean, he likes to keep things insanely simple. I kind of like the same thing. I like things simple. You know, his jig, I got a brown one and a black one, you know, and that's it, you know, and so I like how simple he keeps things. So I always keep black worms or a dark colored worm with me. And if I'm catching fish on the natural one, can you help him, Sierra? I want you to help him out. And yes, kids love them. But anyway, so if I'm getting bites, I will usually swap to a dark colored worm and see if I can upsize. And today it certainly worked. Again, I'm pretty sure it was the dark colored worm. Our biggest fish came on a dark colored worm, a black worm. We kept moving, so we caught that a good one, and then we kept moving, following the rock out, and it was a hump, and then kind of a secondary hump out a little farther, and we caught a bunch of fish off of that hump, and we caught all different size ones. We used the black one and caught a few. We went back to the natural. I just kept trying, you know, to rotate things, keep it similar but just a little different. And then I used the natural one. We caught quite a few more. Then I even went to the large one and we caught another one. And then I was really hoping, okay, hold on. We'll be right back. All right. That's craziness. But I did try this bigger one. It's Strike King head, 3/8 ounce, and a Shakey head, and then you know their large bullworm, the Strike King, you know, bullworm, green pumpkin, and very natural but large, and hoping to upsize. And we didn't upsize. We did catch another fish, but we didn't upsize. It was not a giant, but nice to try it. Nice to, you know, I think we got a bite that we wouldn't have another way, which was nice, but it wasn't a giant by any means. But I was kind of hoping by upsizing the worm, we'd really upsize the fish. But we had caught a bunch of fish at that point. But it was nice to still get another bite. And then we just kept kind of looping around and said, okay, I think we've fished this, you know, pretty good. We might have caught one more, but we had fished that pretty thoroughly. So looked on the electronics for another semi-similar hump, and moved out to another one, and almost immediately caught a real nice one again on the black worm. It was a real nice one, and caught another one on it shortly after, and then that's when the clouds rolled in and we had to get out of there. But it was a lot of fun. If I had probably been, you know, again, paying a little closer attention, I would have done something different sooner. But we did move from the grass to the main lake point, and the main lake point did not pan out for us. There were fish there, but no big ones that we could find. And for some reason, you would think if they're on those humps, they'd be on points. And I don't know if it's because it's so obvious that people were fishing it hard or not. I'm really not sure. But it seemed like the humps were the place to be. It's something that maybe not everyone was picking up on, but boy, they were there. And I think we could have hit that pattern because we did duplicate it, and I think we could have followed that pattern all around the lake, and they were humps all over the lake. I think we could have done that over and over and over and over again, which is ideally what you're looking for. You're looking to duplicate a pattern again and again and again and catch a lot of fish doing it. So talking about real quickly the rods and reels and so on, I will skip the the frogfish and whatever. I've done a frog video for you guys, but this the Shakey head, I've been using. I use a few, but lately I've kind of been stuck on the these are the same rod, but I've been kind of stuck on. This is a These are the G Loomis GLX, the 842 MBR. I really like them. They're sensitive. They're a good quality rod. I really like them. They're the same. I've got this one with the Ned head, and it works really well. The medium for the Ned head. I've got that on 12-pound fluorocarbon line with the Aldebaran, and that Aldebaran, man, I love it for finesse type stuff. It to me is the best reel I've ever used for finesse baits, and it's incredibly light. I mean, so light, it's almost like you've got nothing in your hand. It's so light. So I really, and it casts light baits really well. I mean, that Ned head, I can cast that a mile. Even in the wind, you can still make pretty good casts. Heavy wind, it's a little tough, but even in the wind, you can still make pretty good casts. And with that medium, it's tippy enough. I mean, it really, you know, it works terrific. And you could downsize the line if you wanted to. I like the 12, not necessarily for the Ned head. You could really downsize for the Ned head. And this reel has a terrific drag on it, but I really like the 12 for the shaky heads and for jerk baits and everything else. And I would use these rods a little bit interchangeably. So I absolutely am loving this medium. It's a 7-foot, you know, medium rod. And then I'm trying this Mentanium B, the newer Mentanium, and I like it a lot. If I had probably, you know, from what I've messed around with, I've done some finesse stuff with it, I've done some cranking with it, and it has held up really well. If I had just, you know, had to pick one reel, not a DC, but just one reel that you did everything with, I'd probably pick this new Mentanium, this Mentanium B. It can handle finesse baits, and it's strong enough. It's light, but it's strong enough. The way they redesigned it, it's much like, you know, the Bantam, but it's a little lighter than that. But it's a solid frame, and you can, you know, you can work this bait. I mean, you can crank with it. You can do whatever you want, but it's still finessey enough that you can do light baits. And I think I had pointed this out in another video, but if you look. This was the Aldebaran was the one who really figured this out first. But if you look in there, the eye where the line comes through is very large, and then it necks down pretty quickly and gets a little smaller in the Aldebaran. I haven't seen another reel do that. Well, they took that design and put it into this one, and you see it's very large and it necks down smaller. Well, that is super handy for casting because obviously this, where the line comes through, is going to change all the time, and your line is going to change. So this is going to change as you reel it, but you make a cast and it stays stationary while the line's coming off the spool back and forth. So the larger it is, it feeds better from all different, you know, points. As well as if you use braid to leader, it goes through there so much better. So I really like that, but they managed to put that in there, which I think is handy, especially for finesse baits. And makes a little bit better casting, you know, at least for me. It's fairly light. It's not a feather, but it's fairly light. It's strong enough to crank with. I mean, I have absolutely put this thing through the ringer now, and it has handled it really well. If I could choose, though, if I had more than one reel, I would have this one, and then I would also have the Aldebaran, because it's so light and it handles finesse baits even better than the Mentanium B. I would have two, and so I will probably swap this one out. I'll probably pick up another Aldebaran, put this on, you know, something, you know, that I need a little more strength, you know, than the Aldebaran on, and put a little more finesse reel for the shaky head. But it works, and it works pretty well. But if, you know, I do notice a difference in casting with the Aldebaran for really light baits, but but both work well, and I like how light this is on the rod for finesse baits. And then the other rod I was using, I was holding it right here, but so that was the G Loomis, the GLX, and then I've just been messing around a little bit. This is a medium heavy. It's the NRX 853, so it's a 7.1 medium heavy, and I like it a lot as well. It's got a great tip on it still, and it has obviously terrific feeling. I mean, NRX, it's known for that, but terrific sensitivity. You can really feel that bait on the bottom. And you really want, with a finesse worm approach like this, you really want your best rod fishing these finesse bottom baits. Sometimes the fish will come up and really get them. I mean, they'll thump. I mean, you couldn't miss it if you had, a noodle in your hand that wasn't sensitive at all. But other times, boy, they barely bump it, or it's just pressure. I had quite a few bites today, and even from one of the real nice big ones, it was just like, boy, I don't know, I don't think there's a weed down there, but it feels like a weed. So just to be sure, you wind down and you set the hook, and sure enough, I mean, it moves but barely. You're like, okay, that's a good fish right there. So don't be afraid to set the hook. Reel up your slack, but don't be afraid to set the hook, even when you think it's a weed. If you can, get the best rod you have, most sensitive rod you have. I know this is very expensive, I get that. If you can afford it, great, you're gonna love it. It's so light, it's so sensitive. You're gonna love it. It's terrific. But if you can't, get the most sensitive rod you can, and don't be afraid to swing on something that maybe feels like a weed. And be prepared. Sometimes it will be a weed. It'll be nothing, or it was just pulling up against a rock and it, it's not a fish. But there'll be quite a few times when it is a fish, and you'll be glad you swung on them. But I like the most sensitive rod I can get. That GLX is terrific. The NRX has been terrific. I would say the medium GLX probably loads up a little bit better. So if a fish is jumping a lot, maybe even smallmouth, especially, but they're jumping a lot. Maybe that medium is a little better because it loads up so nicely. And it's the MBR, which seems to load a little more evenly anyway. This is a jig worm rod, and it's very fast, so it unloads and unloads very quickly. I like it, but I'm guessing if a fish was jumping and really trying to spit that bait, they would have a little easier time on the NRX because it is a medium heavy. But I do like it a lot, and it handled them very well. I think that's about it, but all on 12-pound fluorocarbon. And then I did, on the big one, this big worm, I did do something different. This is a Conquest. It's 15-pound fluorocarbon on a Conquest, and it is a medium heavy. Yeah, it's a medium heavy, I know it is. But it's a medium heavy right here, yeah. Medium heavy. It is a 7.5 foot rod, so 903 casting rod, and it handled it beautifully. It's soft, soft tip, so it loads up well. It's got a lot of backbone still, but soft tip. So boy, you can stay really loaded up, and you are going to want to do that because that weight, they could spit that weight pretty easily, and it's large. And they could easily spit it. So you're going to want a rod that really loads up, and they have a hard time spitting that. So that is important. And the longer rod for me helps as well in that situation because it loads up even more. You've got more rod loaded up. So it worked really, really well. I'm going to keep using it for that. All right. Well, terrific to fish with you guys. Can't wait for next time. And I'm doing these recaps at the end. I hope they're helpful. I think they're helpful to learn what we did, why we did it, maybe what we did right, what we did wrong, what we could have seen as a pattern in retrospect sooner. Hopefully that gives you, what's going on, and it will be different. We're in Maine. I realize that, and it will be different where you are most likely. But hopefully if I'm giving you the reasons why I made that decision, and then, okay, this was a good decision or a bad decision, and here's why, and here's maybe how I could have picked up on that sooner. Hopefully that helps you guys. I always like the reasons why. It might be different, for you or for me, but I like to understand why, and that helps me make I think an informed decision for next time. So I would believe it's helpful, but hopefully it is. If you don't like the recap, you don't have to watch it. You can just watch the beginning, watch the fishing action, and just skip the recap. But I think it's helpful. I always appreciate it when people put something like that in for me. So trying to do that for you guys as well. Well, until next time, stay with it, keep after it, and I can't wait to take you on the water.